Captain Sarah Chen gripped the armrest of her command chair as the massive Terran freighter times Prometheus Dawn times shuddered through another gravity well transition. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of carrying 14,000 tons of medical supplies through the unstable space lanes of the outer rim. Most species would never attempt such a dangerous route. But humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most stubborn cargo runners. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," announced Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. His voice carried the careful neutrality that all Terran officers learned when dealing with alien affairs. "It's coming from the Zephyrian colony ship times, Eternal Winds *." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Zephyrians were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Galactic Council. Their crystalline bodies could survive in the vacuum of space for hours, and their technology was centuries ahead of human engineering. They also happened to owe humanity a debt so old that most species had forgotten it existed. "What's their situation?" Sarah asked, already knowing she would respond regardless of the political implications. It was the human way. "Massive engine failure, Captain. They're drifting toward the Keth Nebula's gravity well. The radiation will kill their entire population in 6 hours." Rodriguez paused, checking his readings twice. "They have 40,000 civilians aboard, including younglings." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's life support systems. Every crew member knew the history. 300 years ago, when humanity was still struggling to establish their first off-world colonies, a plague had swept through the Terran systems. The pathogen was unlike anything human medicine had ever encountered, and entire worlds were dying. The Zephyrians possessed the cure. Their advanced biotechnology could have saved billions of human lives with minimal effort, but the Galactic Council had decreed that humanity was too primitive and aggressive to deserve such aid. The Zephyrians, bound by Council law, had watched as 90% of humanity's colonies died in agony. Only the intervention of a single Zephyrian scientist, Dr. Veltar Windwhisper, had saved the human species. She had stolen the cure and delivered it to Earth, sacrificing her own life when the Council discovered her betrayal. Her final transmission to humanity had been simple: debts of compassion must someday be repaid. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Martinez over the comm system, "our cargo includes the new Terran biostabilizers. The experimental ones that can repair cellular damage from radiation exposure. If we modify them for crystalline physiology." Sarah nodded slowly. The biostabilizers represented 5 years of cutting-edge human research, worth more than most planets' annual budgets. They were desperately needed on Earth's outer colonies, where radiation storms regularly devastated settlements. Giving them to the Zephyrians would mean months of delays in protecting human lives. But Dr. Windwhisper had saved humanity when no one else would. "Plot an intercept course," Sarah commanded. "All hands, prepare for emergency medical operations." The times Prometheus Dawn times changed course, its powerful engines straining against the nebula's gravitational pull. As they approached the Zephyrian vessel, Sarah could see the extent of the damage. The elegant bioship's living hull was scarred and blackened, its natural luminescence fading as the organism that formed its structure slowly died. Captain Chen of the Terran vessel. "This is Elder Shimmering Depths, aboard the Times Eternal Winds *." The voice that came through their translators was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, though Sarah could detect the underlying strain. "We appreciate your approach, but we require assistance beyond human capabilities. Perhaps you could relay our distress call to Council vessels?" Sarah stood from her command chair. "Elder Shimmering Depths, this is Captain Chen. We have biostabilizers aboard that can counteract radiation damage to crystalline physiology. We're prepared to transfer them immediately." A long pause followed. Sarah could almost feel the shock rippling through the Zephyrian ship. No doubt they were checking and rechecking their databases, confirming that humans possessed no such technology the last time the Council had bothered to update their records. "Captain Chen," the Elder's voice returned, tinged with disbelief. "Such technology would be extremely valuable. Your species requires these supplies for your own colonies, do you not?" "We do," Sarah replied simply. "But Dr. Veltar Windwhisper saved my species when we had nothing to offer in return. Today, we have something you need." It seems like a fair trade. Another pause, longer this time. When the elder spoke again, his voice carried a tremor that had nothing to do with the ship's failing systems. Dr. Windwhisper was my teacher, he whispered. She spoke often of the young species that refused to surrender to despair. She said humans possess something the Council had forgotten how to recognize. What's that, Elder? The willingness to do what is right, regardless of the cost. The transfer took 4 hours. Sarah watched as her crew worked alongside Zephyrian technicians, adapting the biostabilizers to function with crystalline biology. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, while their alien counterparts marveled at technology that shouldn't have existed. Dr. Patel, the ship's chief medical officer, emerged from the modification bay with crystalline dust coating her uniform. The biostabilizers are ready, Captain. But there's something you should know. The Zephyrians' medical knowledge is incredible. They've already started improving our designs. As the first wave of biostabilizers was transferred to the Time's Eternal Winds asterisk, Sarah received another communication from Elder Shimmering Depths. Captain Chen, our repair teams have analyzed your ship's systems while coordinating the transfer. We have noticed several design flaws that significantly limit your vessel's efficiency and safety. With your permission, we would like to make certain adjustments. Sarah hesitated. Accepting alien modifications could be seen as a sign of technological dependence, something the human government worked hard to avoid. What kind of adjustments, Elder? Improvements to your gravity well navigation systems, enhanced radiation shielding, more efficient energy distribution networks. Consider it. Payment for services rendered. 2 hours later, the Time's Prometheus Dawn Times was running smoother than it had since leaving Earth's shipyards. The Zephyrian modifications had increased their efficiency by 30% and reduced wear on critical systems by half. More importantly, the enhanced radiation shielding would protect the crew during future runs through dangerous space. As both ships prepared to continue their separate journeys, Elder Shimmering Depths made one final communication. Captain Chen, I have sent a full report of these events to the Galactic Council. They will want to discuss humanity's evolution since last contact. I suspect they will be quite surprised by your capabilities. Sarah smiled grimly. Elder, I think it's time the galaxy learned that humans don't just survive. We thrive, we innovate, and we never forget our friends. The Time's Eternal Winds Times disappeared into hyperspace, its crystalline hull gleaming with renewed health. Sarah settled back into her command chair, already calculating how the improved systems would affect their delivery schedule. They might actually arrive on Kepler Station ahead of schedule. Captain, Rodriguez called from his station. We're receiving priority communications from Earth Command, the Centauri Colonial Authority, and 14 other human settlements. Word about the biostabilizer transfer is already spreading. Sarah wasn't surprised. Good news traveled fast in human space, especially when it involved helping others. But she wondered what the Galactic Council would make of humanity's latest demonstration of technological prowess. Set course for our original destination, she commanded, and prepare detailed reports on the Zephyrian encounter. Something tells me this is just the beginning. As the Time's Prometheus Dawn Times jumped to hyperspace, none of the crew could have imagined that their act of compassion had just triggered a chain of events that would reshape the galactic balance of power. The Empire's lifeblood had begun to flow, and ancient debts were finally coming due. 3 weeks after the encounter with the Time's Eternal Winds asterisk, Ambassador Rebecca Torres stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as an unprecedented flotilla of alien vessels approached Earth's solar system. The sight should have been terrifying. Instead, she found herself oddly calm as she counted the ships, 12 Zephyrian biocruisers, their crystalline hulls catching and refracting the light from Sol in brilliant displays of color. 8 Korthak heavy transports, massive and angular like flying cities. 6 sleek Velnari science vessels, practically invisible except for their distortion fields. And most surprising of all, 3 hegemony dreadnoughts, their black hulls adorned with the golden symbols of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Madam Ambassador, said Colonel Harrison, the station's military liaison, Earth Defense Command is requesting permission to activate the orbital defense grid. This is the largest alien fleet ever assembled in Terran space. Rebecca shook her head. Stand down all defensive systems, Colonel. These ships aren't here to invade. They're here to pay their debts. Colonel. The communication request came simultaneously from all the vessels, routed through the Zephyrian flagship times Crystal Harmony *. Rebecca accepted the call, and her office filled with the holographic representations of some of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Elder Shimmering Depths appeared first, his crystalline form now blazing with healthy light. Beside him materialized War Chief Grakthor of the Korthak clans, his massive frame covered in ritual scars and ceremonial armor. The Velnari representative was Dr. Silk Current Dancing, whose flowing, almost liquid form shifted between silver and blue. Finally, Supreme Admiral Vexthar of the Hegemony appeared, her reptilian features marked by the geometric tattoos of her rank. Ambassador Torres, Elder Shimmering Depths began, we have come to settle old debts. Rebecca had spent her entire diplomatic career preparing for this moment, though she had never expected it to actually arrive. Honored representatives, humanity appreciates your presence in our system. How may we assist you? War Chief Grakthor's rumbling laughter filled the chamber. Assist us? Small human, you misunderstand. We are here to assist you. Supreme Admiral Vexthar's golden eyes fixed on Rebecca with predatory intensity. The Council has reviewed the reports of your species' recent activities. Your technological advancement has been severely underestimated. Dr. Silk Current Dancing's voice flowed like water over stones. More importantly, your ethical development has surpassed our expectations. The biostabilizers you provided to the Zephyrians saved 40,000 lives. But the decision to give them freely, despite your own need, has resonated throughout the galaxy. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. I'm not sure I understand. The crew of the Times, Prometheus Dawn Times, simply responded to a distress call. Exactly, said Elder Shimmering Depths. And in doing so, they demonstrated that humanity has evolved beyond the aggressive primitiveness that the Council once feared. But more than that, they honored a debt that none of us believed humans even remembered. The Elder's form brightened as he continued. Dr. Veltar Windwhisper saved your species 3 centuries ago. When she was executed for her compassion, we all thought her sacrifice was for nothing. We believed humans would forget, as most species do when survival becomes comfortable again. War Chief Grakthor stepped forward. But you did not forget. And now we remember our own debts. Rebecca's mind raced through the historical records. I'm afraid I don't understand what debts you're referring to. War Chief. During the plague wars that nearly destroyed humanity, the Korthak clans provided genetic samples that helped your scientists understand the pathogen. We defied the Council's non-interference directive because our warriors respected your species' refusal to surrender. Dr. Silk Current Dancing added, the Velnari secretly transmitted medical research data to your colonies. Small contributions that helped your scientists develop treatments for secondary infections. Supreme Admiral Vexthar's expression remained impassive, but her voice carried an undertone of respect. The Hegemony supplied rare metals through intermediaries. Materials that allowed you to build the medical facilities necessary to manufacture the cures. Rebecca sat down heavily in her chair. None of this appears in our historical records, because we hid our involvement, Elder Shimmering Depths explained. The Council had declared humanity too dangerous to save. But Dr. Windwhisper's sacrifice inspired others to act in secret. We all contributed something, however small, to ensure her gift would not be wasted. And now, War Chief Grakthor continued, your species has proven that our faith was justified. The biostabilizers you shared with the Zephyrians represent technology more advanced than anything the Council possesses. You could have demanded payment, territory, or political concessions. Instead, you gave freely. Rebecca struggled to process the implications. So, you've come to, what exactly? Supreme Admiral Vexthar smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. To settle our accounts, Ambassador. 3 centuries of compound interest on our debts to humanity. The next 6 hours changed everything. The Korthak war chief presented detailed star charts showing resource-rich systems that the clans were willing to share with human colonists. Dr. Silk Current Dancing offered Velnari bioenhancement technology that could extend human lifespans by centuries. Supreme Admiral Vexthar provided access to hegemony, military academies, and advanced defensive technologies. But it was Elder Shimmering Depths who delivered the most stunning revelation. Ambassador Torres, the Galactic Council has been deliberating humanity's status since the biostabilizer incident. They are prepared to offer your species full membership, with voting rights and territorial guarantees. Rebecca nearly laughed. 300 years ago, they called us too primitive and aggressive. What's changed? Everything, the Elder replied. Your biostabilizer technology proves that humanity has achieved scientific parity with the oldest civilizations. Your willingness to share that technology, despite your own needs, proves that you have achieved ethical maturity. And your presence here, calmly negotiating with the galaxy's most powerful species, proves that you have achieved diplomatic sophistication. War Chief Grakthor nodded approvingly. More importantly, you have proven that humans possess something the galaxy desperately needs, which is, Dr. Silk Current Dancing's form shimmered as she spoke, the ability to remember kindness and repay it with kindness. Most species, once they achieve power, forget the help they received when they were weak. Humans appear to be different. Supreme Admiral Vexthar leaned forward. The galaxy is changing, Ambassador. New threats are emerging from the dark sectors. Species that care nothing for diplomacy or ethical conduct. The Council needs allies who will fight not just for territory or resources, but for principles. Rebecca felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. And you believe humanity can be those allies? We know you can be, Elder Shimmering Depths said softly. Because you already have been. For 3 centuries, humanity has survived and thrived while maintaining the values that Dr. Windwhisper died to preserve. You have become exactly what she believed you could be. The formal ceremonies took another week. Representatives from dozens of species arrived to witness humanity's official elevation to full galactic citizenship. But for Rebecca, the most meaningful moment came during a private conversation with Elder Shimmering Depths. Elder, she asked, was Dr. Windwhisper right? Did she really believe humanity could become what we are today? The crystalline being's form pulsed with gentle light. Ambassador, I was there when she made her final transmission. Her words were recorded, but the Council sealed them for 3 centuries. Would you like to hear them? Rebecca nodded, not trusting her voice. The Elder's form flickered. And suddenly Dr. Veltar Windwhisper's voice filled the room, transmitted across the centuries. To the species called human, the voice said, musical and clear despite the static of ancient recording equipment. I die knowing that I have saved something precious. Not just your lives, but your potential. You are young and fierce and uncompromising in your compassion. The galaxy fears these qualities now, but someday, it will need them desperately. When that time comes, remember that debts of compassion create bonds stronger than law or treaty. Be the species the galaxy needs, not the one it expects. Make my sacrifice mean something. Rebecca wiped tears from her eyes as the recording ended. Dr. Windwhisper was the wisest being I ever knew, the Elder replied. She saw potential where others saw only problems. And she was right about humanity. You have become the species the galaxy needs. As the various alien fleets prepared to depart, each carrying new agreements and partnerships with humanity, Rebecca stood once again in the observation deck. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in generations, it felt bright with possibility. Humanity had spent 3 centuries growing into Dr. Windwhisper's vision. Now they would discover what they could accomplish with the galaxy's oldest civilizations as their allies. 6 months after humanity's elevation to full galactic citizenship, Captain Sarah Chen found herself commanding something she had never expected to see, a joint fleet of human and alien vessels, heading into the dark sectors. The times, Prometheus Dawn times, had been refitted with the best technology 4 different civilizations could provide. But it was no longer a simple cargo hauler. Today, it was the flagship of the first integrated humanitarian mission in galactic history. "Captain," announced her new Zephyrian science officer, Crystal Song of Hope, "we're receiving the distress beacon from Outpost 77 Alpha. The signal is weak but consistent." Sarah nodded, studying the tactical display that showed their small fleet approaching the edge of known space. Beside her, human crews worked alongside Korthak engineers, Velnari medics, and Hegemony tactical specialists. The sight would have been unthinkable just a year ago. Status report from the other vessels? Commander Grixnall, the Korthak leader of their escort squadron, rumbled through the comm system. "Human Captain Chen, my warriors report all ships ready for combat operations, though I hope we find nothing more dangerous than radiation sickness." But Sarah's instincts, honed by years of running dangerous cargo routes, told her they were heading into something much worse than a simple medical emergency. Outpost 77 Alpha was a research station built on the ruins of an ancient civilization. The last transmission had been fragmentary but terrifying. "They're not extinct. Still alive. The builders are coming back." Dr. Silk Current Dancing's voice flowed from the medical bay. "Captain Chen, our biostabilizers are ready for deployment. But I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the target system. Something is interfering with our long-range sensors." "Understood, Doctor." Crystal Song of Hope, any theories on what could cause that kind of interference? The Zephyrian's crystalline form dimmed with concentration. "In our oldest archives, there are references to a species called the Architects. They vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago, but their technology was reportedly beyond anything we've ever achieved. If they truly survived..." Supreme Admiral Vexthar's image appeared on the main screen, transmitted from her Dreadnought Times Inevitable Victory *. "Captain Chen, I've been reviewing tactical data from ancient hegemony records. The Architects were not simply advanced. They were transcendent. If they have returned, traditional weapons will be useless." Sarah felt a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. Every major decision in her career had come down to choosing between the safe path and the right path. This felt no different. "Then we stick to the plan," she announced. "We're not here to fight. We're here to rescue survivors and provide medical aid. If we encounter the Architects, we try diplomacy first." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the 7-7 system, and immediately Sarah knew their mission had changed completely. Where the star charts showed a normal system with 12 planets, they now faced something impossible. The entire system had been transformed into a vast mechanical construct. Planets had been dismantled and rebuilt into geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. The star itself was encased in a shell of crystalline material that pulsed with unimaginable energy. And throughout the system, massive ships moved in perfect formation, each one larger than a human city. "By the ancestors," whispered Commander Grixnall. "The ancient tales were true." "Well, Captain," Crystal Song of Hope reported, her voice tight with awe, "I'm detecting the research station. It's intact, but it's been incorporated into one of their constructs." On the screen, Sarah could see Outpost 77 Alpha, a tiny speck of human engineering attached to a structure that defied comprehension. As she watched, the construct began to change shape, folding in on itself, until the research station was brought to the front, clearly displayed. The communication request came not through their radio systems but directly into their minds. When the voice spoke, it carried the weight of eons. "Young species, you have come for your lost children." Why? Sarah had negotiated with pirates, corporate executives, and alien bureaucrats, but nothing had prepared her for this. Taking a deep breath, she responded aloud, hoping her words would be understood. "Because there are people. We don't abandon our own." "Fascinating. We have observed your recent elevation by the younger civilizations. They believe you have achieved ethical maturity. Do you agree with this assessment?" The bridge fell silent. Sarah realized that this was more than a rescue mission. This was a test, and the fate of not just the research station but possibly all galactic civilization hung in the balance. "No," Sarah said firmly. "We haven't achieved ethical maturity. We're still learning, still making mistakes, still struggling to do better. But we try, and when we fail, we try to make things right." "Explain." Sarah gestured to her mixed crew. 300 years ago, we nearly died from a plague. A Zephyrian scientist sacrificed her life to save us, and other species secretly helped despite their government's policies. We never forgot that kindness. When the Zephyrians needed help, we gave it freely, even though it cost us resources we needed. And this act of reciprocal altruism convinced the younger civilizations to trust you. It convinced them that we could learn, that we could grow beyond our primitive instincts. There was a long pause, and Sarah could feel the vast intelligence considering her words. When the architect spoke again, the voice carried something that might have been approval. "We created these constructs as a test. For 65 million years, we have waited for a species to demonstrate true ethical evolution. The younger civilizations are advanced, but selfish. They help their allies, but ignore their enemies. They preserve their own, but sacrifice others. And humanity helps those who once helped them, regardless of political advantage. You risk your own safety to rescue strangers. You share your greatest achievements freely. You are flawed and primitive, but you are also exactly what this galaxy needs." The massive construct began to change again, and Sarah watched as Outpost 77 Alpha was gently separated from the structure. But more than that, she could see the research station's hull gleaming with new additions, clearly alien, but somehow harmonious with human engineering. "Your scientists were studying our ruins when we returned. Rather than punish this intrusion, we chose to observe. Their dedication to knowledge and their concern for their colleagues' safety impressed us. We have enhanced their research and extended their lives to complete it. You're giving them a choice? We are giving all of you a choice. The galaxy faces threats from outside known space. Entities that view organic life as irrelevant. The younger civilizations are powerful but lack the flexibility to adapt to truly alien threats. Humanity possesses that flexibility." Crystal Song of Hope's form brightened with sudden understanding. "You're offering us an alliance. We are offering to teach. Your species has the ethical foundation to use transcendent technology responsibly. Combined with the resources and experience of the younger civilizations, humanity could become the bridge between what was and what must be." Sarah felt the weight of decision. Everything humanity had worked for, everything Dr. Windwhisper had died for, had led to this moment. What would you teach us? How to build ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. How to heal damaged space-time. How to communicate across galactic distances instantaneously. How to transform matter at the quantum level. How to preserve consciousness beyond biological death. The implications staggered Sarah. Humanity could become truly immortal, truly transcendent. But at what cost? And in return, you would serve as guardians of this galaxy. When the outside entities arrive, you would lead the defense. You would make the hard choices that the younger civilizations cannot make. You would sacrifice and suffer and die to preserve life itself. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of humans and aliens working together. She thought of Dr. Windwhisper, dying for a species she barely knew. She thought of her own crew, risking their lives daily to deliver medical supplies to colonies that would never know their names. We'd do it anyway, she realized. Even without the technology, even without the power, humans would fight to protect others. It's who we are. Yes, that is why you have been chosen. The transformation began immediately. The research station's crew was safely transferred back to human space. But not before sharing data that would revolutionize galactic science. The architect constructs began teaching human engineers principles of engineering that had been old when their son was young. Zephyrian, Korthak, Velnari, and hegemony scientists worked alongside human researchers to understand technologies that defied everything they thought they knew about the universe. But the most important change was invisible. Across human space, a new sense of purpose began to emerge. Humanity had always been the species that refused to give up, that helped others despite the cost, that remembered kindness across centuries. Now they had become something more, the guardians of galactic civilization. 3 years later, when the outside entities finally arrived, they found not a collection of separate species, but a unified galaxy, led by the ethical descendants of a death world. The first battle was terrible and costly, but humanity's willingness to sacrifice for others inspired unprecedented cooperation among former enemies. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Sarah Chen of the Galactic Defense Force, stood on the bridge of humanity's first Transcendent-class starship and watched as another outside entity fell to combined firepower from a dozen species. The victory had been purchased with blood and sacrifice, but it had been won through unity, forged by ancient debts of compassion. Dr. Veltar Windwhisper had saved humanity 3 centuries ago. Today, her legacy was saving the galaxy itself. The Deathworlders had become exactly what she had believed they could be, the species the galaxy needed when it needed them most.